Welcome, one and all, to the ancient journey. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to us. Today's journey, the Long Island serial killer. It's near Christmas in Long Island, and the year is 2010. The damp winter air picks up the smell of sand and surf as it rushes ashore the Jones Beach State Park, crosses the Ocean Parkway, and pushes north up Block Island Sound towards Providence and Boston. It's a cold, hard wind, and the area is as barren and ugly in the winter as it is warm and pleasing in the summer. But on this day in December, it's particularly ugly. Suffolk County Police have been called to the scene of a homicide. A police officer happened to be walking his dog and ended up coming across the skeletal remains of a female, tucked inside a burlap sack and laid by the roadside. The discovery led to the search of the area for clues, and to the grim surprise of police, 4 more bodies were located. Winter ended, but the finding of bodies went on. In the spring, the body count continued to increase as police found 4 more bodies. In addition to the 8 bodies found, police found partial remains as well. Included among the bodies was a mother and a toddler. Long Island had barely turned the calendar to spring, but was clearly being torn apart by a serial killer. In September, police began releasing sketches of unidentified victims they found in the spring. They were also able to determine that the partial remains found matched partial remains found miles away on Fire Island in 1996. Tips started to roll in like the tide, and soon police had over 1,000 tips to begin investigations with. Spring faded into summer, and beach season faded into fall. Winter arrived again, but the serial killer remained active. More remains were discovered in a nearby marsh. Police were quick to discount this as a murder, possibly to calm an already nervous public about an active serial killer. As the identities of the victims became known, the search for the killers narrowed in focus. The killer preyed upon the weak and the anonymous, those who lived hard lives and could go days without being missed. Among the identified victims were Maureen Barnes from Norwich, Connecticut. Maureen was a petite female, not even 5 feet tall. Maureen was a struggling single mother with a mortgage, and Maureen was a prostitute. She used the income from prostitution to pay her bills, and drifted in and out of the life when she did or didn't need money. She was last seen in 2007, and shortly after her disappearance, an anonymous man called Maureen's friend, Sarah Carnes, to tell her that Maureen was alive and well, but she was in Queens. Melissa Bartholomew of Erie County, New York. Melissa had been missing since 2009 and was living in the Bronx working as a prostitute. She met with a client on July 10, 2009, deposited $900 into her account, and she was never seen again. She posted her sex ads on Craigslist, and after her disappearance, her younger sister Amanda received numerous anonymous phone calls from a man using Melissa's phone. The man told her he had killed Melissa and he would watch her rot. Police could only trace the location of the phone calls coming from the Manhattan area, the Madison Square Garden area, and the area of Massapequa, New York. Megan Waterman of South Portland, Maine. Megan was a prostitute and also advertised on Craigslist. She'd been staying in a hotel only 15 miles from where her body was found. She was last seen on June 6, 2010. Amber Lynn Costello of North Babylon, New York. Amber was a Craigslist prostitute, used heroin, and lived just 10 miles or so from where her body was found. She was last seen on September 2, 2010, when she left North Babylon to meet a client who was offering her $1,500 for her services. In the spring of 2011, the following persons were found. Jessica Taylor of Manhattan, New York. Missing since 2003, parts of her dismembered body were found in Manorville, New York that same year. In 2011, other parts of her body were discovered on Long Island. Valerie Mack of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Valerie was last seen in 2000 in Port Republic, New Jersey by family members. Mack was a prostitute in Philadelphia, and parts of her dismembered body were discovered in Manorville in 2000, very near where Jessica Taylor would later be found. Other parts of her body were discovered in Long Island in 2011. John Doe was an Asian male killed by blunt force trauma, whose body was found in the same area. John Doe was dressed in woman's clothing, was most likely a prostitute, and had been dead between 5 and 10 years. He was 5.5 feet tall and had a slight build. Baby Doe was an African-American toddler found buried 10 miles away from Jane Doe No. 3. Parts of Jane Doe No. 3's body had been found in 1987 in the Hempstead State Park in New York. In 2011, more of her remains were found in Long Island. Jane Doe No. 7 was found in 2011. Her skull and teeth were found in Long Island, and DNA revealed that some of her other remains had washed ashore on Fire Island in a trash bag in 1996. In addition to the list of persons whose death was attributed to this Long Island serial killer, there is a list of persons whose death may have been committed by the same person or persons, although police have not officially linked them to the serial killer. Tina Foglia's body was dismembered and discovered in several areas just north of the Robert Moses Causeway, which leads to the area where the other bodies on Long Island have been found. In 2007, a dismembered body of an African-American woman washed ashore in several locations in Long Island. She was dismembered in the same way as the other victims of the serial killer. Tanya Russia's body was found in a suitcase in June of 2008 in nearby Belmore, New York. Shannon Marie Gilbert went missing on May 1, 2010. She placed a panicked phone call to 911 claiming someone was trying to kill her. Her body was found 19 months later in a marsh near the location of the other victims. In 2013, a body was found near Oyster Bay, not far from the other victims. She is an Asian female, approximately 29 years of age, and is believed to have been there since 2010. Natasha Hugo went missing from her car in 2013. Her body later washed up on Gilgo Beach near where the other bodies were found. Long Island was in the throes of a panic. Over a period of nearly 20 years, someone who lived among them had murdered between 10 and 16 people. Most of the victims were prostitutes, and most were small in stature. The FBI joined the investigation in 2015, but not until after some controversy. The FBI was reportedly being blocked from assisting the investigation by Suffolk Police Commissioner James Burke. Upon Burke's retirement, the FBI gained more access and began to assist. It's a mystery why Burke would have blocked the FBI, but authorities now had narrowed down the crimes as being committed, most likely, by only one person. It was time for them to start collecting suspects. The first suspect was announced in 2017 when Suffolk County District Attorney had announced that John Bitroth from Long Island was considered a suspect. John was a carpenter and had been convicted of the murder of 2 prostitutes in 2017. There were similarities in those murders and the condition of some of the bodies found in Long Island. Nothing came of the announcement. The case is still open and John hasn't been charged. Bitroth lived in Manorville, just 3 miles from the location of the dismembered bodies of Jessica Taylor and Valerie Mack. Bitroth was married and was known to hunt and enjoy killing animals. One of the prostitutes that Bitroth had murdered had a daughter who was best friends with Melissa Bartholomew. Melissa's mother stated that her daughter had received many phone calls from Manorville before she went missing and was murdered. Joel Rifkin was a serial killer and also a former Long Island resident. Rifkin was already in prison by this point and denied any involvement. Most spectacular was the accusation that former Suffolk County Police Chief James Burke was involved in the murders. Burke had a history of violence and associating with prostitutes. He beat a man for stealing a duffel bag from his car that was filled with sex toys and pornography. Bruce was known to rough up prostitutes and spent 46 months in federal prison for civil rights violation and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Most interesting is the claim that he kept the FBI from assisting in the investigation. Joseph Brewer was the last client that Shannon Gilbert was seen alive with, but Brewer was cleared by police. Dr. Peter Hackett, a neighbor of Joseph Brewer, called Shannon Gilbert's mother, Mary. He told her he was caring for Shannon, and he ran sort of a home for girls in trouble to stay at. He then called back and denied any contact with Shannon. Police records showed he had made the phone calls, and the marsh where Shannon was found was basically in his backyard. Police later ruled him out as a suspect, stating he was just a loudmouth who liked to be the center of attention to police. Lastly, James Bissett took his own life in his car in a parking lot. James ran a nursery in the area, which was a main supplier of burlap in the region. Despite all these suspects, the case remains open and the murders unsolved. Profilers have created what they think is a likely identity of the killer. They state that he is most likely a white male, between 20 and 40 years of age. He's very familiar with the South Shore of Long Island. He has access to burlap, which he uses to dispose of the bodies. He may have ties to or be in law enforcement, but at the very least, he is familiar with police techniques. The case remains open, and there is a reward for information leading to the apprehension of the killer or killers. If you have information, call Suffolk County Crime Stoppers at 1-800-220-TIPS or text your message to CRIMES or visit tipsubmit.com. All calls will be kept confidential. Thanks for watching, and thanks for sharing the journey.